there is there that will be supported by the growth that you have. And I think that's a pretty serious misconception about how it works.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's like the organismal level of when we talk about cells and they say, well, this compound needs to interact with another compound. It's like just bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So they think that the plant exists because the animals need it, not the animals exist because plants happen to be there.
Exactly. There's some of that in there.
Interesting. How did that make you feel when you read that insight? Was that really surprising to you?
Not really surprising, but definitely made me feel like I need to work harder at like core thinking about students. It's easy to sort of view them all as being you or like little you, but they're totally different people from totally different perspectives and backgrounds that are just going to come into this hearing things their own way a lot of cases, you know. So, I don't know, that one sounds like a pretty fundamental viewpoint that would be tough to turn over without some serious trial and error feedback kind of things, but we do our best, you know, with what we have.
Yeah. That's a really interesting misconception.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that you've had some experience with Acer and also been able to pioneer some questions, and thank you for doing that. It's great that we're getting some more questions in our bank. What would you say is the ideal use of Acer questions?
So it's a good question. I don't know how to feel about the grading of it.
Okay.
So even if we get to a point where it seems like you've gotten to where the variation between the algorithm and the humans is somewhat equivalent to between humans, it still feels a little weird having some student grade be dependent upon that. And so if there's even one instance where I could see what the student was trying to get at and the computer can't, I'd feel bad about really harming the student for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'd be reticent to put any high stakes on the auto-grading algorithm where it'd be like an exam or something like that. I doubt you guys would even ask people to do that kind of thing. But
no.
I am a fan of using computers and metrics for things, and so if you do show me that the integrator reliability is somewhat equivalent, then I'm not opposed to using them at all for like little points. We've been doing extra credit to try to motivate the students to use them at all for the research.
Oh, okay.
So I'm totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like getting the feedback and seeing the words. So both the actual responses when they pop out and the analyzed bar graphs of this number of students went with this kind of concept versus that. And so I think they certainly have a role in developing and tweaking future curricula, even if you're not going to use them right then as a sort of summative assessment. They can sort of help you build your future learning program.
Okay. So it sounds like you are comfortable as of now using them in a low-stakes scenario to gain insight into student thinking, but you're not comfortable with using technology to assign any sort of grade or high-stakes assessment.
Yeah. Okay. I do it with these online homeworks, but they're like multiple choice. It's basically the same thing as a Scantron.
Yeah.
You pre-vet the right answer to begin with. When someone gets to write in something new, it's just a little bit more challenge, which is the reason why you guys are even doing this and no one else is on this, you know?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. So you seem pretty comfortable with the technology, but you're not willing to let a computer give a student a grade.
Yeah. Although if you guys are ever thinking about doing that, I would like to see how it works.
Yeah. I would too. All right. Definitely. So, how comfortable are you with using ACER questions and reports? Do you think are you at the point where you could use them on your own without the support of the FLC? Or do you prefer to have the support of the facilitator and the FLC to use the questions and reports?
I think I'm good using them on my own.
Okay, great. You haven't had any major problems using them in Canvas or anything like that?
Not so far.
Okay, great. Cool. All right. Would you recommend ACER to a colleague?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
Why?
Well, just because of things exactly what you asked me, what is the value of these questions? You get this extra kind of input. If the colleague is teaching a small course where they're reading essays all the time, then clearly that's not where the value is for ACER. But with my large cohort colleagues, they could be helped a lot, I think, by getting some actual free response feedback like we have to see some kind of surprising results out of these things.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. So it sounds like your FLC and the ACER project is going pretty well for you. Is there anything that you would like to see change?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, overall you sound pretty satisfied. I'm glad that we're meeting your needs.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So now I'd like to ask just a few questions about your teaching. So the last time we talked, seems like forever ago, you said that using learning objectives was working very well for you. Is that still working?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest pieces of advice to new instructors is to start drafting a set of learning objectives and then building everything off of those.
Okay. And why do you think you should start there?
It's interesting that question even needs to be asked. It would seem like, where else would you start? Even though I didn't, and most of us don't. We kind of just have this amorphous set of learning objectives kind of in our brain, I guess, and they're textbooks, so we just think, oh yeah, that's a good slide. But the idea that it's backwards design would be starting with learning objectives and then moving in the other direction. That one seems like the forward one, and that our native tendency seems like the backwards one of later just figuring out what are the important things. So if someone asks you, hey, what are your learning objectives, and you say you don't have any, you sit there, and you actually have to think about them for quite a while. And if that's the case, then why are you teaching this course if you haven't already put that kind of thought in?
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. Why wouldn't you do it? And yet most of us don't. Like on some level, we know we're supposed to do backwards design, but it doesn't occur to us to teach the way we do research.
Totally.
Yeah. So has that changed the way you think about the course that you're teaching now that you focus on the learning objectives?
Yeah, it has. And it, in what I consider to be good ways, obviously. And one of which is it's tough to write the learning objectives, I think. And you can always change them later, so I'm not saying that all of mine are perfect or anything like that, but once you sat there and made the calls on what those word